Wonder Woman 768, Mariko Tamaki writing with Rafa Sandoval on the art. So now we know that this run's coming to an end and we've only got a couple more issues left. It's kind of an interesting perspective, knowing how short this run is actually going. It's essentially just been one long arc. Ultimately, I think by the time it's done, it's maybe going to be like somewhere in the 8 to 10 issue range. I think all in.
Yeah, and I don't say it's messy, but it just feels like the inclusion of Lord. I don't know. It felt like a speed bump, almost. And that really the end game is Liar Liar. And there's a lot of cool turns for Liar Liar here that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah, I think
motif.
I think Liar Liar in this issue finally kind of clicked, and I got why what the concept and what the potential of the character was, because all of a sudden this idea that, you know, either intentionally or accidentally, it sounds intentional, that she killed her mother by making her drive into a truck when she was in the back of the car, and she herself got injured as a kid. Never knew who her father was at the time. But Maxwell Lord was secretly paying for her, you know, medical care, but the medical care being kind of like to keep her in control and keep her locked up and keep her away from the world. The idea being that, oh wait, if Maxwell Lord thinks she's dangerous and should be held captive somewhere, then shit, she must be dangerous because he's Maxwell Lord. But the thing it introduces here is the idea that she is schizophrenic and hears essentially messages from her bunny, who talks to her and tells her to do things. And she gets this delusion over the course of the issue that she is a knight and that she is going to slay the queen, which is Wonder Woman. So we get this ongoing thing as she's like using her mind control to essentially convince people of what she's also believing, and to let her out of her cell, to, you know, let her go wherever. Because I think one of the things that I really liked is that when we get to eventually see her show up somewhere, she isn't actually wearing this suit of armor that we see her in, that she sees. She's just wearing like a big, you know, loose-fitting sweater and some whatever. But she sees this, and one of the great things is when she goes to Wonder Woman's apartment, and we get the little flashback of her going to the apartment, is that, you know, we see her in these like frumpy clothes talking to the landlord or whoever it is. But then when we see it from her perspective, she's in this suit of armor, and he's like this like gargoyle, like holding like a set of keys. And I was like, oh, I'm actually really liking this. I'm liking this idea of like, this is how like messed up her mind. It's not just that she can control minds, it's that her mind itself is actually unstable and she's seeing things that aren't there, and that's kind of what makes her very dangerous, but in a really sympathetic way, where you don't just want Wonder Woman to beat her, you want her to help her. And I think that's actually a really good tactic to take with a character list, because Maxwell Lord is so heinous and so villainous that you don't want him to be helped, you want him to be defeated. But Liar, all of a sudden, I'm like, no, I actually want to show her sympathy. Yeah,
it's a typical Wonder Woman villain that I feel like. Wonder Woman being the symbol of compassion in the DCU, of course, tries to help her villains. And when it's someone like Max Lord, it's like that only goes so far. But with Liar Liar, you know, you're like, oh no, it's a lot like, it reminded me of Silver Swan a little bit. That it's this person that's not really in control of themselves, and so Diana has to deal with that.
Yeah, I think that's the part.
In addition to surviving,
I think that's the part that's so intriguing here. It's someone who's not really in control of themselves, but they can control anyone. That is a really like scary thought and idea. And I think, you know, maybe someone who like knows more about these conditions would maybe critique this, and I'm not, but at least from my perspective, the idea of taking something as schizophrenia and mixing it with a character who has telepathy and like telekinesis, well, not telekinesis, but telepathy, that is like such an interesting combination, and seeing what that becomes of that character, and the idea that she's put herself on this almost like Dungeons and Dragons mythical quest to take down this evil, you know, Wonder Woman. Because, you know, the final page, the cliffhanger, is like her version of what Wonder Woman looks like. We see this big scary Wonder Woman. That is a really interesting idea, and I think for the first time, I mean, I've enjoyed the story up until now, but this was the first time where I've really got excited about Liar Liar and really been into like what she is. Obviously, there's a speed bump along the way where Deathstroke shows up to get to Etta, not because he's specifically targeting her, but because it basically had a job where if anyone ever accessed the medical records of Liar Liar, that he would show up and kill whoever saw them. And Wonder Woman is able to talk him down based on the subject of, like, you know, children being mistreated by their fathers, because Deathstroke can relate to that.
Yeah.
And has some, you know, deep-seated problems there. But yeah, I really dug this issue. And I think this added a lot to what's been here so far, and I won't quite say it's lived up to what Tamaki's run in my head could have been. Probably just because it's about to end. So like, I mean, even if like every issue now is as good as this till the end, it's still only the last 3 or 4 issues out of all of it. But I think this added a lot of interesting concepts and depth to Liar Liar for me, where she's not just another villain anymore. I like this quite a bit.
Right. So I was also getting Alice in Wonderland vibes because the White Rabbit, right? She's following the White Rabbit down into a hole and whatnot. And so just that aspect of it too, that this is a world of her own making, and she's through the looking glass now.
Yeah.
Like I really thought that was a real nice subtle put in there by Tamaki.
Yeah, when they realize she's gone, they lure her in by letting her know that her father's not dead, that she didn't succeed. He's still in hospital, alive. So it lures her into the hospital. And again, when she sees the hospital, because I love this page, is Wonder Woman's waiting in the hospital. My only critique of the art there actually is that for some reason I don't feel that Wonder Woman is small enough in this panel to not have the face details in some way. She's just got a completely blank face, and that looked a bit odd to me. But what I love about this panel is you see like Liar Liar standing in front of the hospital, and it's just her in her hoodie, and it's just the hospital. But then her version of it at the bottom, which is it's not a box, it's more of a fantasy style like portal looking panel, and she's in a suit of armor. The rabbit's floating beside her, and it's a castle. She's getting into a castle to take on Wonder Woman. I dug this. I rather dug this. I think this is the best issue of this run so far.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. It's Tamaki. This is where it finally, I think, she's hit their stride or hit her stride with this character. It's starting to pull together, and of course, you have the little dips in with Deathstroke, and it's like, okay, that's fine.
I mean,
I can deal with Diana versus Deathstroke. It's fine, but it's not the coolest thing, which you wouldn't think based off the cover.
Yeah. I mean, I like some of the Max Lord stuff. I just thought it was weird how quickly it ended. Like, I thought they were really setting up like a long-term partnership that was going to eventually lead to betrayal, but it wrapped up so quickly. But this issue, I finally really got an excitement and sort of got, okay, this is what Tamaki's going for, and I really like this depth of eye to Liar Liar here, and this concept of her like just living in her own fantasy world and not seeing things as they are is super interesting, and again makes her kind of sympathetic because she's not in complete control. And it's always nice to see Wonder Woman tackle villains like that. There's a reason why a lot of her villains are. I mean, she has some villains that are just outright villainous, and that that being Max Lord, Dr. Psycho's another one like that.
Dr. Psycho's one that I never want to see a sympathetic version of. Oh, of course. Especially after watching the Harley Quinn show. Like they kind of touch on it where he's almost like they're constantly kicking him while he's down, but then he has these moments where like, oh no, yeah, he's vile. And so Dr. Psycho's one. Like I can deal with Kale in Silver Swan and even Cersei. I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that come up, but there are certain ones that need to be just
Whereas Cheetah, Silver Swan, No Liar Liar, these are the villains that do have this sympathetic side where you don't want to just see them get destroyed. You want to see them be rehabilitated, and it's heartbreaking when they can't be. Cheetah is obviously the most famous example and the one that has some of the best stories, but it's definitely something that pops up.
And if you want a really nice origin of Cheetah, go to Wonder Woman.
Oh, here we go.
Issue 8, which is one of my favorite issues of all time.
Yeah. But I will say, as much as we're saying it compares to these characters, I think that the take on this character is unique. This tying it to mental illness in this way, I do think is very interesting and different to those characters. So, I like
and it
that.
doesn't take it lightly either, because Diana instantly gets it, right? That she's like, I have to save her. I don't have to defeat her. I have to save her.
Yeah.
And I like that because I like the idea of Wonder Woman is this symbol of truth. And what is the truth to someone that has the mental issues that Liar Liar has? Right? Like, so how's that going to play out now?
Yeah.
It's very interesting, and I like that.
Yeah, I was super into this. I'm very impressed with this issue. And it's coming a little bit late in the run now that we know it's ending, but I think it does retroactively make some of the Liar stuff a bit more interesting. So I'm happy with the improvements. I'm happy with the issue overall. Matt, what are you giving the issue?
I'm going to give this an 8.5.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I'm going to agree with the 8.5, and yeah, it's the sort of thing where if it keeps this up, like, you know, I could definitely see this back little run of issues before it ends being up to about the standard of maybe the X23 book, because, you know, Tamaki's a fantastic writer, and I just wonder if you know, maybe the run length, or maybe the way like she had to tie into things that were going on before, maybe hindered the start of it, and obviously because it's not that long a run, there wasn't enough time to get out of it. I'm not really sure, but. Or maybe it was just a case of, oh, she had a weaker start this time, and that's fine. You know, writers are allowed to do that. But there you go. So that's a 8 out of 10 from, or yeah, 8.5. Sorry, for me.